Are you planning your first Camino? We might need to have a little chat. And I need to give you a little bit of a warning. Don't worry, it's nothing bad. We'll talk about that coming right up. So particularly if you're planning your very first Camino, I'm sure you're excited. I'm very jealous. That first one is so amazing. The subsequent ones are too, but that first one is very special. But if you're planning your first Camino, yeah, I just need to give you a little bit of a health warning. It can change you. So don't worry, it's nothing bad. I just want to tell you about some of the things that may alter your perception of the world. So let me ask you a question first of all, because how you answer these may depend or may have a bearing on how much you feel changed by walking a Camino or not. Let me ask you first why you're walking a Camino. For a lot of people, and for me, it was very much, I just felt compelled to walk it, and I have to confess I became aware of it because of the Martin Sheen movie. Excuse the motorbike noises. A lot of people kind of look down their noses a bit and say, oh, you know, is that how you found out about it, you know? But I think it's less of an issue these days. But so many people have seen that movie and decided to walk the Camino. I just felt drawn to it, and all of the experiences that Tom, the main character, had in that movie, and the stage he was in life, and you know, the things that he was going through in life, that just resonated so much with me that I just wanted to go and do that. So let me ask you why you're walking it. Are you walking it for, you know, a break from the routine, to get off the treadmill of life, maybe to sort of slow down and reevaluate? Or are you just going for a long walk, which is perfectly okay? People walk the Camino for many, many different reasons, but the reason why you're walking it will have a bearing on whether you're going to actually see some of these changes that I'm talking about. So that'll make sense as I go through the video. The next question I have for you is, how far do you plan to walk? And this has quite a bit of relevance too, because the Camino is very much a bit of a learning journey. And the longer you walk the Camino, the longer you become absorbed in it, the more you kind of put your normal day-to-day world behind you, and you know, the reflection deepens and so on. So it depends how far you're going to walk. Not so much in distance. I think it's more in time. I don't particularly walk long distances every day, but I find 7 days I'm kind of just getting into it. 10 days, I'm really starting to get in the groove. My wife, Pat, her very first Camino was, I think, 8 or 9 days. And she was really getting into it just as we finished. And it was like, oh, darn, you know, I want to keep going. So some of this sort of transformational stuff, you know, it takes a little while before that starts to happen. So think about how far you're walking. You don't have to walk 800 or 1,000 kilometers, I don't think, to get some of the real benefit out of walking a Camino, but I would say 2 weeks is probably a good minimum time to be walking. And then a bit of a controversial question for you, and I will come to the changes after this. Are you going to walk alone or with someone? Now, a lot of people walking their very first Camino kind of a little bit anxious. Maybe they haven't traveled before, maybe they haven't been overseas before, and the thought of, you know, being in a foreign country, walking on their own, hiking, maybe you're not used to hiking normally, doing that on their own kind of scares them. Don't let it. It's the Camino is not a place to be scared of, and you're part of a wonderful community of pilgrims who are walking it. So why do I mention if you're going to walk alone or not? I've walked 3 Caminos so far, 2 from Saint-Jean of 800 k's each, and once from, it was before Othebrero, so about 150 k's with my wife Pat for her first Camino. So I did my first one on my own, and the next 2 with my wife Pat. Okay, I will speak truthfully. Which one did I enjoy the most? By far the one on my own. And Pat knows this, and we've talked about how it's quite different walking with someone. Why is it a very different experience walking on your own? And I've done a video on this, but let me just kind of quickly give you a thumbnail sketch of why I think that is. If you're walking on your own, you're doing a lot of thinking, a lot of reflecting. It's much more of an inner journey. If you're with someone, you're kind of worrying about them a bit. You're probably talking to them a lot. Without this sounding nasty or anything, they kind of become a distraction to your Camino in a way. If you're walking for the purposes of, trying to reevaluate your life and hoping for some sort of transformation, all those sort of things. If you're just going for a walk, that's fine. Take your partner with you, take the family. But having other people with you for the whole journey, I think really dampens down that whole transformational aspect of it, because you're constantly thinking of them. You can't just freewheel, walk as far as you want, as short as you like, stop when you want. You're having to consider other people. I don't mean this in a selfish way. It's just when you don't have any of that, your mind just is freed up a lot. And it's a very, very different journey. The other element of walking alone is that you're probably going to feel a little bit lonely at times, and you tend to reach out to others. Very often other people walking on their own. And I find walking on my own, I interact way more with other pilgrims. Walking with Pat, we kind of spend most of our time together, and we don't interact with others as much. So yeah, it's a very, very different. If you've walked Caminos before and you've done it alone or with other people, so other people that you travelled to the Camino with, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. But for me, yeah, and like Pat's cool with this. For me, it's got to be alone, and my next one's going to be on my own and longer, because I just love that alone time and the solitude. So there we go. Some things to think about. Why are you walking? How far are you going to walk? If you want to have that sort of life-changing impact, and I'm not guaranteeing it's going to happen, but to give it a chance, you want to be walking at least 2 weeks, if not longer. And are you going to walk alone or with someone? So again, that comes back to the purpose. Why are you walking? If it's just, going for a nice walk, bit of a hike, doesn't matter. Okay then, so after that very long preamble, apologies for that, let me tell you some of the things that could change. So particularly, if you are walking with the purpose of initiating some sort of change, transformation, wanting to reevaluate your priorities in your life and all the rest of it, and you're walking a reasonably long distance, so for me, it's got to be, I think, at least 4 weeks, and you're walking alone, there are 3 things that I found that can happen. One, you become way more tolerant. I used to get upset quite easily, irritated by things. And it's probably because I generally lead a very busy life. I run a business, I work very long hours, and I've always been like that, since I basically left home at 15. And so I'd become quite intolerant, I think, which is a bit sad. What I found walking a Camino, and particularly being alone, walking a longer distance, I just kind of let go of stuff. And one of the things that I let go of was expectations. And so I basically never let anything get to me. I was just enjoying the journey so much, whether it be injury, whether it be accommodation problems, whether it be a terrible meal, little things were just no longer important. And I became far more tolerant of things going wrong and of people. And I think that's one of the biggest benefits of walking alone, is that you tend to form very quick, very deep relationships with other people. lots of amazing people from all over the world. I mean, if you're traveling as a group, as a couple or something, you will, but I just find it more intense if I'm walking alone. So tolerance level went sky high. Very little bothers me now. And I think it's that whole Camino experience of just, walking for weeks on end with a pack, leading that very simple life. You kind of learn what's important and what doesn't matter. And so I became way more tolerant. The second thing that I found happened, and this is a bit of a warning, I became far less materialistic. And again, I think it's that thing of walking alone on a longer journey. I was happy to have a bed. I didn't really mind too much where it was. I was happy to get a meal. Most were pretty good. Only a couple that I had were a bit dodgy. There's a lovely saying that people use, and this probably differentiates hikers from pilgrims in a way. So there's a question for you: a hiker or a pilgrim? Pilgrims walk with a sense of gratitude, not, is it expectation? Something like that? Yeah, just kind of drop your expectations and be grateful for what happens. So I became way less materialistic. I mean, silly little things. Before I walked that first Camino, I was thinking of upgrading my car. It happens to be a very nice car, but it's a very old car. It's 20 years old. And I was starting to think that, it's not a good look in business, is it, if I'm driving around a 20-year-old car? And, I don't give a stuff now, to be honest. I'll probably keep it another 10 years. I'm lucky to be in Australia. If you're watching this from the UK, you'd say owning a 20-year-old car is impossible. It would have rusted to bits in 10 years. In Australia, they don't. I've got something like 250,000 kilometres on the car. People drive around in cars with 1 million kilometres on the clock. So I love my old car, and I just see no point in upgrading it. So I don't really spend money on stuff anymore. So be prepared for that. I threw out half my clothes that I never wore. I just realised that I don't need stuff to be happy. So way less materialistic, which can upset people around you if they're a bit more materialistic. So that's the second one. The third one, and this could be a little bit controversial depending on what your attitudes are to these things, but you are likely to become a lot more spiritual. So obviously a lot of people walk the Camino de Santiago because it's a pilgrimage. It's an ancient Christian pilgrimage. And actually before that, it was, I was going to say a non-Christian pilgrimage. What's the term for that? The Druids, all those sort of guys, they were walking it. Pagans. It was an old pagan pilgrimage. They used to follow the Milky Way. But it's an ancient Christian pilgrimage through quite a Catholic country, traditionally Catholic. I mean, the church is not so strong in Spain anymore. And so you are kind of wrapped in all of this church history and Christianity and things as you're walking the journey. So particularly along, popular routes like the Camino Francis, you're going to be passing beautiful churches, some 1,000 years old, wayside crosses. You may be lucky enough to see religious processions taking place. You're going to tread the path, quite literally, that millions of pilgrims have taken before you. And you can almost feel that energy. So it is a tremendous journey from that perspective. Now, if you've watched this channel before, I don't really class myself as religious, in that I don't really follow any formal religion. I don't go to church, anything like that. I kind of a believer. On Camino, whoa, that changes. Just because of that environment. And that's probably sounding a bit shallow, isn't it? That I'm only like that on Camino, but I can't help it. It's just to be immersed in all of that culture and history. I find myself, kneeling in churches and lighting candles and, all sorts of things. I just, that whole element of my being just really comes out. Particularly if you're walking a longer Camino on your own. So there we go. That's probably three things that I find can change a person. And if you've walked a number of Caminos, I mean, I've only walked 3. I'm a relative newbie. There's people out there who walk dozens. You know, is this normal? I have interviewed people on this channel who have literally walked a dozen Caminos, and I don't think they've seen these transformations. So I think it very much comes down to the purpose of your Camino, why you're walking, and whether you want these sorts of things to happen, and whether you're open to it, or if you're just out for a long walk, which is fine. But yeah, you know, if you embark on a Camino like I did, with, you know, a lifetime of stress and hard work, and I mean, I wouldn't say it was a midlife crisis, but, you know, I'd sort of reached a point probably where I'm thinking, geez, you know, what's the point of all of this? You know, working 70, 80-hour weeks and things like that. I need a break. And that first Camino, I took 2 months. Was it 2 months? No, 40 days to walk the Camino Frances, 800 kilometers, and it was the most transformational thing I have ever done in my life, without doubt. And that's what keeps drawing me back, to be honest, because I miss that, and it's that whole environment. It's not something I can really get walking at home. And I've said this on many videos, you know, people go, Rob, you must love hiking and bushwalking. Nope. The Camino has got nothing to do with hiking, from my perspective. Maybe now you understand what I mean by that. So there we go. Look, I've rabbited on a bit, and I've done a few videos recently which have been, you know, a little bit outside the norm. But probably for some of you, this will resonate, you know, while you're walking, and just be aware that some of these changes will happen. If that's what you want, you know, great, embrace it, let it happen, and you'll have an amazing experience. And conversely, if you're just out for a walk, enjoy the walk. Thanks for watching, and see you next week. Bye for now.